one of the UK's most prominent pro-Ukrainian voices, has passed away this week. We're going to talk about who he was and why it may be something that other bloggers should take note of. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to cover first. I want to talk about kind of the human side of this. This is the founder and co-host of The Telegraph. This is a major UK news outlet. Their Ukraine podcast has passed away at age 32. This is a man named David Knowles. And I can't say I have encountered this particular podcast, but by all accounts, he is a real stalwart in the UK and globally, bringing stories about the Ukraine conflict around the world. And really humanizing the conflict over the last 2 years. He originally launched his podcast, Ukraine the Latest, as a Twitter space on the first day of Russia's full-scale invasion, but it grew into a popular and award-winning weekday podcast that Knowles hosted alongside Telegraph Associate Editor Dom Nichols and Francis Delarney. Of course, editors from the Kiev Independent frequently joined as guests, and, he sounded by all accounts like a really, really cool guy. It really exceptional in that he came into the Telegraph in 2020 during the height of COVID as the deputy head of social media, and then was the head of social media until June 2023 when they named him head of audio development. But you could see, it sounds almost like a position they created for this podcast. Because I will tell you, as someone who also makes daily content, it is a full-time job, even if you had the staff of the Telegraph behind you. I think head of audio development is just code for keep hosting this podcast. Right. And this podcast reached over 100 million total downloads, making it one of probably the UK's largest, if not the largest, pro-Ukrainian voice. And the report is that he passed away after suffering a suspected cardiac arrest in Gibraltar. Now, there's some things that other mill bloggers like me should find concerning about this. And we're going to talk a little bit about this. But first, I wanted to mention that there's been a lot of stories in the news about right-wing vloggers, bloggers, commentators that have been accepting a lot of money to parrot pro-Kremlin talking points. I don't do that. I don't accept money from any government. And I can do that. I can take that stance because my most important income stream is from you guys on Combat Vet News. Now, Combat Vet News, of course, is the best way to support me. I own the site. I host it. It is entirely independent and insulated from coercion from other platforms. But it only works if you guys help. And so if you want access to twice a week uncensored combat videos from the front line, we do a deep dive into the tactics. Just today, we looked at the Russian perspective of Ukrainian FPV attacks. We've heard how effective they are, but until you see it from a Russian GoPro, it really doesn't hit home. Those you can access with any tier, but if you want to access the weekly Q&As where you can ask me literally anything from my favorite food to my time in Afghanistan to what I think the Ukraine's winning strategy could be, those are for the lieutenant tier and above, and of course the by name shout outs, the colonel tier. But you guys, all you guys who support me over there, make a tremendous, tremendous difference. Now, this is what I want to talk about, is this has been a war that is unique in a lot of ways, but one of the largest and most interesting ways it's unique in that it has a social media dimension. Social media is almost a front line in and of itself. I'm not saying, listen, I get to drink my coconut water, all right? So, and sit in my office, right? So I'm not like out here assaulting trenches. I'm not stupid, but just like the bankers in Russia and the treasury employees who are dropping sanctions, they're contributing to the war. Social media and messaging has become an essential front of this war. That's why the Kremlin works so hard to buy off prominent U.S. influencers to get them on message against Ukraine. So the Kremlin, we know, is willing to spend millions to raise up anti-Ukraine voices, and there's some evidence that at least some individuals who are embarrassing to Russia are also targeted for elimination, right? Here's an interesting article that profiles the way that social media and crowdfunding really has become an essential kind of tool in this war. Right? They talk about social media outreach, either by the military units themselves, mill bloggers, intermediaries, and how they raise efforts of crowdfunding through, again, online banking, crypto payments, etc. You might know DonorBox. We actually just, I'll put the link in the description. We're raising money right now with Ukraine Aid Ops to buy drones for the Ukrainians fighting in Pokrovsk. And you can see, of course, they procure those drones. All right, dual-use equipment, donations of dual-use equipment, that's what we use here. Those dual-use equipment are converted into, well, we don't know exactly what Ukraine does with them officially because they're a 501c3. We only provide them with equipment. There's a step. There's another step here, and then of course it's employed on the battlefield. And then crucially, there is social media content creation as part of the idea is to stimulate further donations and promote information warfare by creating content, right? And you notice that my content, some of it actually comes from the units that we donated to. And that in turn allows me to continue to engage in my social media outreach, generating more crowdfunding and donations, the step we won't talk about. And then it employs again. So this is a really sort of brilliant cycle here. And Russia's aware of it, right? So, it's worth saying that, again, it is rare, but not unheard of by any means for someone in their early 30s to have a cardiac event, again, exerting themselves. Gibraltar, as you guys know, is kind of a vacation spot of sorts, actually owned by the UK. Right? So it is a British overseas territory and city located at the very southern tip of the Iberian Peninsula on the Bay of Gibraltar next to the Mediterranean Sea. You can see here it is. It is a city with an airfield, cemetery, small camp, a ferry, a bunch of streets with a little parliament, cable car, and then, of course, some sports ground and flats, lots of camping, swimming and beachy stuff. But also, significantly, it is at the very, 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 very southern tip of Spain. Now, what is interesting about it, one, is that, it's a British overseas territory, but it is also a Spanish, it is adjacent to Spain, right? And it's about as far away as you can get from Europe from the UK while still being in Europe. Now, you might remember this guy, right? This is a Russian pilot who defected along with his family with taking his Mi-8 helicopter. This was incredibly embarrassing to the Russian regime. And importantly, he was relocated. The Ukrainians never publicly disclosed where they had moved him, but the rumor is that he actually texted an ex-girlfriend from his new home in Spain, and that allowed the Russians to track him down. And he was found in a parking garage in Spain, in the town of Villajoyosa, in southern Spain. He was found gunned down, killed. And I want to point this out, that Villajoyosa is not far at all from Gibraltar, right? You could see here's where he was found, again, off the Mediterranean Sea. Here is where David Knowles was or passed away. And so we know that Russian intelligence operates in the area and that they're willing to kill people, right? And the question then is are mill bloggers really targets in this war? Well, the answer to that is yes. And Russia's willing to take them out. For example, a pro-Russian war blogger, Maxim Tartarsky, was killed. Maxim Resnick, known as Ivan Tartarsky. That there's a lot of evidence that it may have been Ukraine that killed this pro-Russian mill blogger, but it's actually more likely, they think, when he was killed in 2023, about a year and a half ago, that he was actually killed by the Russian government, because he had gotten a little too off message. And that this is a sign that, again, mill bloggers that promote narratives that even just aren't praising enough of the MOD will get themselves killed. Here's another mill blogger who, again, died of an apparent suicide after facing a barrage of criticism for revealing heavy losses in Russia's Avdiivka campaign. This is Andrei Morozov, who served on the front line in Ukraine for Russia, said in his last post Wednesday that he decided to execute himself to help his comrades in arms avoid fallout from his critical publications, which had angered the military command. This is obviously preposterous and almost certainly was done. Either he was forced to make this post before he was killed, or he was killed and then they simply hacked his phone and made this post. And this was for, of course, the crime of revealing the true scale of Russian losses in Avdiivka. So this kind of story is extremely common in this conflict. And so, again, I point these things out to be like, yeah, sometimes young people do have these unexpected cardiac events. It's not unheard of, but it is extremely, extremely rare. And the reason I'm find it suspicious is, again, this is someone who passed away, who, as far as I know, did not have other health conditions, very suddenly, very abruptly, while covering the war against Russia, and Russia has shown itself very willing to kill anti-mill bloggers that are off message, not even anti-Russian mill bloggers, but mill bloggers that just get off message. And you got to remember the Salisbury poisonings in UK. This was an instance where a Russian dissident living in the UK, and as well as two unknowing citizens of the UK, were killed by Russian military officers who basically were attempting to kill this Sergei and his daughter Yulia Skripal, who were living in the UK, again, poisoned by a Russian poison. I don't know what else to say, a nerve agent, right? And so, again, this is something that is not outside the realm of normal. This would be par for the course for Russia. That's all I'm saying. Again, I have no evidence. If you want evidence, I don't have it. I just am saying it is a very, very strange coincidence. So that's really all I had, guys. Again, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. And it's important to remember there's always a human dimension to this. But it's also important to remember that we need to have both eyes open about the realities that come with the operating against an entity like the Kremlin. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Huge thank you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. That helps. As well as thank you to Bill Collier, Robin Colburn, Giles Morning, Eugenia Cuesta, Chris Gorsuch, Francis Karius, L90, and Petya Tororu, as well as all of our lieutenant tier members. I couldn't do this without you guys. I really couldn't. Thank you so much, and I will see you all in the next one. Cheers.